Government's doing a little bit too much governmenting, if you ask me. French publisher arrested in London on terrorism charges. Ernest Murray was stopped at rail station and taken into custody, where he was questioned about his participation in French protests. If there's one thing the French can do, it's have a fucking protest. A French publisher has been arrested on terror charges in London after being questioned by UK police about participating in anti-government protests in France. Because, of course, you know, the way it works now, if you don't like the government very much and you want them to back off of interfering with every single facet of your personal life, you must be a terrorist. It's like that meme where it's the guy out in the woods in his cabin going, I just want to be left alone. And then it's all the feds for the three-letter agencies going, whoa, we got ourselves an extremist here, boys. Ernest Murray, 28, a foreign rights manager for Editions La Fabrique, was approached by two plainclothes officers at St Pancras Station on Monday evening after arriving by train from Paris to attend the London Book Fair. He was questioned for 6 hours and then arrested for alleged obstruction and refusing to disclose the passcodes to his phone and computer. His treatment was condemned as an attack on the right to demonstrate amid calls for protests outside the UK Embassy in Paris and the French Institute in London. Well, we're not going to have the right to protest for much longer. The government are currently in the process of banning protests and making them illegal. How's that gun ban going? Well, Britain actually doesn't have any mass shootings because we banned guns. Yeah, they're about to take away your right to protest. Congratulations, well done. Murray arrived at what are you going to do about it? Protest at St Pancras at 7:15 with his colleague Stella Magliani Belkacem. I have no idea how to say that. The editorial director at the Paris-based publishing house, to be confronted by the two officers. Magliani Belkacem, I'm just going to call him Magliani, told The Guardian, when we were on the platform, two people, a woman and a guy, told us they were counter-terrorist police. They showed a paper called Section 7 of the Terrorism Act of 2000 and said they had the right to ask him about demonstrations in France. She added, I'm still shaking. We are in shock about what happened. Well, that was the purpose of it. It was to scare you. She said that French publishers had drafted a joint letter calling for a protest outside the British Embassy in France on Tuesday evening about Murray's treatment. When the officers began questioning Murray, Magliani called her friend Sebastian Budgeon, a senior editor at Verso Books in London, at whose home she and Murray had arranged to stay. Budgeon arranged for a lawyer to visit Murray. The lawyer called Budgeon at 1 a.m. on Tuesday to confirm that Murray had been arrested over his refusal to tell police the passcodes to his confiscated phone and laptop, and as is his right, fuck off, it's none of your business, he's not done anything wrong. He was transferred to a police station in Islington, North London, where he remained in custody on Tuesday. He was later released on bail. Editions La Fabrique is known for publishing radical left authors. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? Like, left wing people being arrested under such laws. I mean, if only someone was warning you. Blah blah blah. Murray also represents the French science fiction novelist Alain Damasio and had arranged more than 40 appointments at the London Book Fair. A joint press release from Verso Books and Editions La Fabrique condemned Murray's treatment as scandalous. It said the police officers claimed that Ernest had participated in demonstrations in France as a justification for this act, a quite remarkably inappropriate statement for a British police officer to make, and which seems to clearly indicate complicity between French and British authorities on this matter. Which, of course, if you want to be a protester of any kind, hey, Terrorism Act. Yeah, in America, they've got the Patriot Act. I mean, if only people were warning you that this type of thing, we're only going to use it on terrorists, don't worry. And now it seems that terrorists, the definition of that has been expanded to literally anyone that protests against the government. If only people were pointing out that that's exactly what it would become. It added, we consider these actions to be outrageous and unjustifiable infringements of basic principles of the freedom of expression and an example of the abuse of anti-terrorism laws. Abuse? No. These anti-terrorism laws are working exactly as intended. that was the goal of these, to be able to arrest dissenters. And infringements of basic principles of the freedom of expression. I mean, yes, we are supposed to, by man's own logic and reason, have those things. However, those things kind of frustrate the government's attempts to control absolutely everything we do. So you can incite that all you want. The government does not care about it. does not care about it. But what about my free speech? Yes, you should have free speech. The government does not care that you're supposed to have that. If you do anything to frustrate their attempts to the things that they are trying to do, they don't care. They'll arrest you and charge you anyway. Like, that's why I'm at the point where I don't say, what about free speech to the government? Like, they don't care. They don't care. They know you're supposed to have free speech. They'll infringe on it anyway. They don't give a shit. The statement said a protest was planned at the French Institute in London and called on France's ambassador to the UK, Helen Duchesne, to request Moret's immediate release. Budgeon said it is causing a stink at the London Book Fair, and there is a big stink in France as well. There's been an increasingly repressive approach by the French government to the demonstrations, both in terms of police violence, but also in terms of security clampdown. Well, it is Macron. Like, he's an authoritarian, so, you know, of course there is. Hundreds of thousands of people took to the streets in France last month over Emmanuel Macron's use of constitutional executive powers to push through an unpopular increase in the pension age. The protest caused King Charles' planned visit to France, his first overseas tour as monarch, to be postponed. The Writers Association, Pen International, I actually know some of the guys there, said it was deeply concerned that Moret was detained on counter-terrorism grounds. Pamela Morton, senior books and magazines organiser for the National Union of Journalists, also expressed concern. She said it seemed extraordinary that the British police have acted in this way. I don't find it extraordinary. They always act in this way. What are you talking about? And arresting a publisher on the way to the London Book Fair. We will be taking this up with the police, she added. Ah, yes. Report the police to the police, where they will do the famous meme of, we've investigated ourselves and we have established that we have done nothing wrong. A Metropolitan Police, which is what happens when you make the police and government the final arbiters who have the say in all disputes, including those involving themselves, where ultimately they will just always rule in their own favour. Government just works, doesn't it? A Metropolitan Police spokesperson said at around 7:30 p.m. on Monday the 17th of April, a 28-year-old man was stopped by ports officers as he arrived at St Pancras Station, using powers under Schedule 7 of the Terrorism Act of 2000. On Tuesday the 18th of April, the man was subsequently arrested on suspicion of willfully obstructing a Schedule 7 examination, contrary to Section 18 of the Terrorism Act of 2000. So in regards to the Terrorism Act, this is it working as intended. It is to arrest dissenters who are going up against the government. We're eventually going to see how it became a case of anyone who was moderately right-leaning is now a Nazi, racist, fascist, bigot, isms, and ists. It's now going to be a case of literally anyone that doesn't like the government is going to be considered a terrorist, which is pretty much exactly how it works in literally every dystopian novel, movie, or franchise that you've got out there. And it's how it works as well in other authoritarian nations. If you don't like the government and you want to, you know, use your voice to try and get the government to change, you're a goddamn filthy terrorist. And we've got acts to deal with people like you. Acts that you supported because certain things happened that we also did. It's like, yeah. You know that thing where the government's caused the problems but then offer to sell you the solution, usually at the cost of even more of your rights? Well, hey-ho. This is that plan in action.